Hello, Gino here, and you are listening to Otherworld Connections. We live in a critical time where now, more than ever, angels and fairies, hidden forces, are bursting at the seams of the veil to work with us. They want to see us change in order to save the world and live in service to others. So join me on a journey to empowerment and enlightenment with an angelic angle and a fairy focus, looking into ways to improve our current situation, morality, archetypes, solutions for self-healing, and spiritual sciences in light of theosophy and other occult traditions.
Hello, welcome back to Otherworld Connections. And the intro makes this show sound like it's going to be like some current affairs expose or something. Oh, well, hate to burst your bubble out there. Hope you're all doing well. And if you are listening, thanks for tuning in. And let's check stuff out. Today, we are going to look at another fairy tale, The King and the Labourer, which is an old Celtic fairy tale. That's all I know. I had a look into that. I couldn't find really any information about that. But it's what's in the story, right, that counts, and what qualifies it as worth reading or not. We have a message from our travelling companions today. We also have a message from the fairy royalty, the She. And in our Hive Mind segment, we will barely scratch the surface on the topic of thought, of course, by way of the Rosicrucian mystery tradition. We'll see what Max Heindel has to say about that. And again, we will just have a brief look at what's happening with the moon, because the fairies, the Fae, really hold our connection with the moon, or how the moon affects us, in high regard. And they would like to see us, keep an eye on what's going on with the moon. And so that's what I'm doing here, learning as I go. Okay, we're starting with gateways. Gateways to connecting with, the collective consciousness, connecting with others, connecting with, your higher self, just elevating things. So ways to do that. And when you do these things, the quote-unquote fairies and angels absolutely love it. And that's kind of what this show's about. So, one of these gateways is reading fairy tales, especially reading fairy tales to children, especially reading fairy tales to young children. And even more so than that is having fairy tales in your toolkit that you have an understanding of the allegory. And the further you go with that, the more likely, or the more chance, or better chance, the young child has, when they pass their formative years into their more developmental stages, they have more of a chance of learning and understanding those allegories, as in the deeper morals, the deeper principles that are veiled within the story themselves. That's just how things used to roll back in the old days. And, the fairies and angels want that brought back. So get out there and read books to children, okay? Let's take on those drag queens. If you want to dress up as a woman, maybe that's okay if you do that. But just keep it to fairy tales, please. Oh, and it's funny, right? If you actually look at what's going on with that drag queen story time, it is essentially the inversion. If you look at the stories that they read, they're not allegorical. They're overt. So they're inverted. Everything's inverted there. The man's dressed as a woman. He's reading an overt story instead of allegorical story. And they're trying to educate kids bluntly, which is treating kids like they're dumb. We need to keep things too fantastical and magical in the world of young children. And the fairies and angels would like to see us do the same, live the same, because young children and the kids out there are part of our world too, and they want to see everything merged together. Right, here we go. I'm talking too much now. I've warmed up. Here we go. A labourer was digging a drain when the king came up to him and began to speak. Are you busy at your work? I am, your majesty. Have you a daughter? I have one daughter, and she is 12 years old. Oh, God. I shall ask you one question, said the king. I am no good at solving questions, said the labourer. I shall ask anyway, replied the king. How long will it take me to travel around the world? Have your answer ready by 12 o'clock tomorrow. The labourer racked his brains, but he could think of no way to answer the question. When he got home, his daughter saw that he looked troubled. She asked her father what was the matter, and he told her about the king's question. That is not so difficult, she said. Tell the king that if he sits on the sun or the moon, it will take him 24 hours. At 12 o'clock the next day, the king arrived. Have you the answer to my question? If you sit on the moon or the sun, your majesty, it will take 24 hours. The king was impressed with the labourer's answer, but sensed that he had not thought it up for himself. The man said that his daughter had told him what to say. Here is another question, said the king. What is the distance between the earth and the sky? The labourer could not imagine how anyone could know the answer. So again he asked his daughter, and she told her father what to do. Take 2 pins and wait for the king. When he asks you what you are doing, tell him that you are going to measure the distance from the earth to the sky, but that he must buy you a long enough line so that you can make the measurement. When the king arrived at 12 the next day, the man did as his daughter had suggested. That is a good answer, smiled the king. I do not think that you thought of it by yourself. Again, the man admitted that his daughter had thought of the answer. I am impressed with your daughter, said the king. She must come to my palace to work, if you allow it. I shall be a good friend to you. So the labourer's daughter went to the royal palace and worked in the kitchens. She worked hard. The king was pleased with her work, and the girl grew into a tall and beautiful young woman. But because she came from a poor family, the other servants looked down on her and teased her. When the king heard of this, he made her father a knight. The girl could not believe the king's generosity, but it soon became clear that the king loved the girl, and eventually the two were married. Afterwards, the king took his wife to one side and told her that he had something important to say. The queen must never speak against the king in any judgment, he warned. If you do, you must leave the palace. It would not be right for me to disagree with you, said the girl, but if you ever have cause to send me away, please grant me 3 armfuls of whatever I choose. I agree to that, said the king. And so the king and queen began a happy married life. They soon had a son, which made them even happier. And the labourer still could not believe his luck in being made a knight. One day, one of the king's tenants came to the king to complain to him. He had a mare that had foaled, but the foal was always following his neighbour's old white horse, and the man thought that his neighbour was trying to steal the foal. The neighbour, for his part, insisted that the foal was his. This is how to solve the question, said the king. Put the 2 horses and the foal together near a gap in the wall. Then lead out each horse in turn and see which the foal follows. Whichever horse it follows, her owner shall have the foal. The king's order was carried out, and the foal followed the old white horse. When the queen heard what had happened, she went to the wronged owner and told him what to do. "I must not speak against the king's judgment," she said, "but go out and plant some boiled peas near where the king passes. When he asks you if you think they will grow, you can say, 'They're as likely to grow as the old white horse should give birth to a foal.'" The man did what the queen suggested, and the king saw that he had been wronged. But he also guessed that such a clever ruse had begun with his wife. "Come here, wife," he said. "You are to leave the palace today, for you have given judgment against me." "It is true that I did so, and I see that I must go," said the queen. "But grant me the 3 armfuls that I asked for." The king was angry with her, but there was no going back on his word, so he indicated that she could take what she wanted. His anger turned to astonishment when she picked up both him and his royal throne and carried him outside the door. "That is my first armful," she said. Next, she took the young prince in her arms, carried him outside, and placed him in the king's lap. "That is my second." Finally, she gathered up an armful of all the royal charters and placed them with the prince. "And that is my third. I am happy to leave if these go with me." The king saw there was no parting with a woman of such wit. "O dearest of women, stay with me," he said. They went back into the palace together, and the king ordered that the foal should be returned to its rightful owner. All right. Well, yeah, my meter and cadence and that wasn't the best, but don't know if you can hear that bird in the background, but the tuis are back. So a tui is a native New Zealand bird, and I don't know, I just got taken aback because they're right outside the window, and they have quite a, well, they just got quite a beautiful beautiful sound, and they have a very unique look. They have a white sort of tuft crest on their chest, and yeah, they're just a very, very beautiful bird, and it's a promising sign that things are starting to warm up out there. And I got taken aback because this microphone picks up a lot of stuff in the background. But anyway, that was the fairy tale. So, I'm just going off first glance, about what, wondering what is the meaning in here. Well, there are a lot of things in here, right? If we're looking at morals, well, I would say that the wife showed, and so there's the monarchy, right? There's the king. And the wife kind of defied that system, and she defied it on her own, and she kind of showed really her own internal rulership, her individuality, and her own common sense. She made decisions outside of the structure of the monarchy, when she went against the king's tyrannical rules. Never speak out against me, even if I'm wrong. Well, he was wrong, and she spoke out against him. So she did the right thing. She pursued justice. And on top of that, she did it all in a way that led by example and influence and inspiration. Okay, so the monarchy continued, but that's not the point. If you understand that, external monarchy is essentially slavery, and the solution really is an internal monarchy, and that the external monarchy is just an externalization of what should be going on internally, then this is a good book to read to young children if you have that understanding. And even if you don't, you might lead your own self to that understanding by reading these stories, because these things are woven inside the fabric of these stories, and that's why they've stood the test of time and lasted so long. And I just want to read you where are we? I would like to read you something by Jack Zipes, who are one of the authors out there that look into that study fairy tales. From his book, The Irresistible Fairy Tale: The Cultural and Social History of a Genre. The focus of fairy tales, whether oral, written, or cinematic, has always been on finding magical instruments, extraordinary technology, or powerful people and animals that will enable protagonists to transform themselves along with their environment. And in this case, it was a powerful person that enabled protagonists to transform themselves along with their environment. That's what happened here. And that is really a way of explaining what goes on deeper inside the fairy tale. Because we are all powerful people that can enable ourselves and others to transform the world, to change the world. We have the power to do that. And kingdoms are often represented in fairy tales that get put up against an innocence and a childlike logic. And that's quite a common thing that goes on in the fairy tales. And so, what I think is going on there are lessons about essentially natural law and about internal versus external monarchy, and the power of saying no, and the power of just using your common sense and saying, no, I'm going to do things this way. And from the book Paganism Explained, Part 1, by Varg Vikernes and his wife Marie Cachet, he's written a lot of quite good stuff, which I'm surprised to have learnt only recently. Imagine that you are a child again, and you still believe in Santa Claus. When your parents tell you about the Yule traditions, you see them from the perspective of a child, innocent but also ignorant. When you grow older, you understand that there is no Santa Claus, and you see reality. You have passed a test. You have turned around and can now see what is causing the shadows on the wall in front of you to dance. Our mythology must be understood in this light. The purpose is not to make people believe in fictional entities and fantastical events. The purpose is not to make people believe the shadows dancing on the wall are real. The purpose is to educate and to distinguish the wheat from the tares. Well, there you go. I'm not super convinced on the Santa Claus analogy, but he's made his point, and using that as an example. Distinguish the wheat from the tares. So just the sort of deeper meaning of what's going on with the fairy tale. And I think part of it is kind of treating treating kids or seeing kids like they are kind of just like stupid humans because their brain's not fully developed. And I think there's an association there with the fairy tale, like, silly kid will believe anything. But actually, it's the opposite, or things like Santa Claus and all that sort of thing are really important for kids. First off, because then they can be traumatized with the fact that that's not even real. Perhaps, right? There are people that say that Santa Claus is real out there. What am I trying to say? It's about the allegory and the parent actually understanding the morals and the principles hidden inside or veiled inside the story. And then the fantasy stuff is for the kid's imagination, because that's what they're all about. The less real and the less believable, the better. All right, where are we at? Right, next segment. Oh, do you know what a tare is? Distinguish the wheat from the tares? I did not know this. It's like it's the weeds that grow in the wheat field. I never knew that. All right, traveling companions. Message from our angels. Okay. Right, focus on your own needs to support yourself. You cannot get away with neglecting this responsibility. A specific skill is required to achieve this. You'll need to make an extraordinary effort with determination, sustained energy, and a force of will to control your thoughts. So yeah, this show is a very it is kind of like a show about mind control, right? Controlling your own mind. And that's my work. And so this is a good show for those of you out there that want to get in control of your mind. So that's a specific skill required to focus on your own needs and support yourself. And your needs can also be, your needs could be on a micro level, physical, basic needs like warmth and sustenance, and maybe emotional needs, like you need to take a break. And then your needs are also going to be on a macro level, on your place in the world, your dharma, dare I say, and that sort of thing. And well, that spark's well and truly alive over in all my buddies over there in the US of A. That's still a thing going on out there. A strong sense of self and the importance of focusing on yourself, I believe, is still pretty well promoted over there, at least compared to other countries, other self-defeating countries out there. All right, and you cannot get away with neglecting this responsibility. Extraordinary effort and a force of will. Okay, so the force of will, this is the interesting part, because if we look at, Joe Dispenza, whose work I've been studying a lot lately, and is really important, right? Because he's kind of scientifically discovered occult knowledge, and he's really going hard out to put it out there in the world and to try and change lives. He is an amazing person. One thing I noticed that he says is, look at me criticizing Joe Dispenza. Boy, my horse is really high today. Oh my goodness. What he says, I notice, is that some people won't be able to achieve the thing that he tries to get everybody to do, which is get in control of their mind, control their thoughts to create their reality. That your personality is your personal reality, and you can change your personality with your mind, kind of thing. That's the Joe Dispenza. But he says some people won't be able to achieve it. And he says that because it's hard. Because it takes extraordinary effort, determination, sustained energy, and a force of will. And anyway, I just think that's interesting. But the reality is that it's a fight. And to win a fight, well, you need skills. You need to be able to, in this sense, the fighters, that's my thermos opening up. That wasn't a weird fart. Oh man, it's freezing cold, so I'm just pouring some more tea. Yeah, so you need a force of will. So force of will is going to take strength, and we're going to sort of move through this a little bit in this show. That I am particularly interested in the force of will to control your thoughts aspects, because for Joe Dispenza, I wouldn't say he dismisses it, because he's out there. And actually what Joe Dispenza does is when they go on their tours and they do all their group, I don't even know what you call it, I guess you can buy tickets and you can go and do the meditation, and he brings a team of people with him and they do some scientific studies and get some data from you while you get to change your life at the same time, kind of thing. Well, anyway, Joe Dispenza works closely with the people in the audience that are like the impossible cases. That's his, he's trying to unlock this part where people won't be able to achieve it. He's trying to make it so people can achieve it. And I think that's where the trouble lies with the world, and especially all of us people that know the truth and stuff like that. Whatever's holding us back is going to take an extraordinary effort, determination, sustained energy, and a force of will. Because we've got to do all that to control our thoughts, because it starts in the mind. All right, better move along. And this is Gino from Otherworld Connections, and thank you for tuning into Revolution.radio, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. So please help support our efforts and airtime by visiting the station's donation section on our website, Revolution.radio. Pretty please and thank you. And chuck in an extra $1 for me, because I don't have any money. At least right now. Okay, so, and not $1 for me, $1 from me, excuse me. $1 from me for Revolution.radio to keep going, so I can keep doing this. Don't give me $1 through that. Okay? Okay, do give me $1. Give me $2 from that. All right, messages from the she. And, the thread being weaved again today, the power of thought. Right, this is the messages from the she on the power of thought. This is really good, guys, so buckle up. Balance your feelings and actions by building up your strength. There we go. A strong, healthy body corresponds to strong, healthy thoughts. This will lead to confidence in realizing your goals. All right. So exercise is going to show up a lot, because I need to do more of that. And until I get the ball rolling, that stuff's going to be popping up in these readings. Because if one suffers, all suffers. If one's morbidly obese, all are morbidly obese. But hey, this is a really good message, because everyone can get stronger and fitter than they already are. 2, balance feelings and actions. And as Joe Dispenza says, just to link it up, that if out of your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, if you get 2 of them lined up, if you get 2 of those ducks lined up, then the other duck falls in line. And this is to be able to control your thoughts, to utilize the power of your mind. Okay? So there's 3. The trivium, right? Your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. Okay, what am I talking about in that? I'm talking about that. Building up your strength. A strong, healthy body corresponds to strong, healthy thoughts. There we go. Okay, so that's, is it directly the law of correspondence? Well, that comes to mind, where the microcosm is reflected in the macrocosm. Well, those reflections are seen all around us. And so the microcosm in this case being the mind, and the macrocosm being the body, there are correspondences there, 100%. And especially in the 20th century, the spiritualist movement, there was a lot of information about studying that and working on that, because even doctors were playing around with this stuff. Mind and material, or the mind and the physical. All right? So basically, building up your physical strength is going to help your mind to have strong and healthy thoughts. It's as simple as that. Easier said than done, right? Because if you're depressed, you're suffering from melancholy, well, that's, overthinking. That's excessive contemplation. And that's kind of that's been a lot of what my world's been like, to be honest. I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm just saying that from, a lot of this stuff is anecdotal for me. Okay? And that's how I know a bit of this stuff, because I had spent a lot of time trying to figure out ways to fix myself. Alright, so the remedy to that is concentration. The remedy to contemplation is to balance it out with concentration, which is focusing on actions that you're doing, which is really just doing things for a concentrated amount of time. To focus on that, instead of to focus on your thinking, overthinking. Alright, and even that. So that's the solution there. And that's easier said than done, because depression can be a real negative feedback loop, where it really stops you from getting up and concentrating on physical action, or just going up and doing something. It tends to rob you of that, and your neural pathways just get solidified into this vicious cycle. So then what do you do there? Well, there's the mind and physical correspondence. There's also the mind and material correspondence, right? So you could look into looking for an external solution to get the ball rolling, and then funnily enough, you're then you're concentrating on something else. So herbs, plants, herbs and spices, that kind of thing, looking into those things as medicine, well, you're actually concentrating on something else, but you're looking for an external solution, which can be done, and it can help. And it can be that thing that gets you out of that funk and into looking at building up your strength. For example, if we look at mind material and mind physical, the vascular system, the blood circulation, is related to the mind. It's related to depression and melancholy, and then the opposite of melancholy, which is focus and determination and stuff like that, in action. So you can look at herbs and spices that promote blood flow. Okay, getting above my pay grade now, but ginger, chili, cayenne pepper is the one I'm trying to say. Things that promote blood flow, they're things that you want to be looking at to get the blood flowing. Because a poorly operating vascular system is connected to melancholy and depression. So you can look externally for the solution, and then that could be, a path that you go down. Alrighty. Moving on to the hive mind. Alright. So we're looking at the Rosicrucian Cosmo-Conception by Max Heindel. The creative word. The mind is the most important instrument possessed by the spirit, and its special instrument in the work of creation. The spiritualized and perfected larynx will speak the creative word, but the perfect mind will decide as to the particular form and the volume of vibration, and will thus be the determining factor. Imagination will be the spiritualized faculty directing the work of creation.
There is a strong tendency at the present time to regard the faculty of imagination slightingly. Yet it is one of the most important factors in our civilization. If it were not for the imagination, we would still be naked savages. Imagination planned our houses, our clothes, and our transportation and transmission facilities. Had not the inventors of these improvements possessed the mind and imagination to form mental images, the improvements could never have become concrete realities. In our materialistic day and age, there is scarcely an effort made to conceal the contempt in which the faculty of imagination is generally held, and none feel the effects of this more acutely than inventors. They are usually classed as cranks, and yet they have been the chief factors in the subjugation of the physical world and in making our social environment what it is today. Any improvement in spiritual or physical conditions must first be imagined as a possibility before it can become an actuality. The mind corresponds to the lens. It is the focusing medium whereby the ideas wrought by the imagination of the spirit are projected upon the material universe. First, they are thought forms only, but when the desire to realize the imagined possibilities has set the man to work in the physical world, they become what we call concrete realities. And there we go. How much do you invent out there? Being creative is actually it's real tough, man. Because whatever you create is there for the world to see and to hate on and criticize. And also, there are a few swings and misses when you do that too. And I think we live in a world that scares us out of creating and inventing things. And I couldn't help but think of the importance of fairy tales when I was reading that. Do you see the sort of the connection there? That to make the inventors and the creative people that create the world and to create a world that we want to live in, we want imaginative, creative inventors that have an understanding of objective morality. And starting out in life, that's where fairy tales play an important role to create those kind of people, to create that kind of world. So that's what it's all about. And when the electrician came to our house to rewire the house, and he saw some of the work that I was doing, the DIY work, he coined the phrase a Gino special. So now there's an electrician out there, when someone does something that's odd or off or not right in his mind, he calls it a Gino special. And I'll tell you what, I've been having fun using the incorrect materials for the job. Let me tell you that. Nothing dangerous, mostly just cosmetic. Concrete resurfacing, that's expensive. And on top of that, it's just ridiculous. So I've been using like plaster adhesive. I've been using all kinds of things to fill up cracks and holes in the concrete, because getting the carport or the driveway redone with concrete, that's a lot of money for essentially sand, lime mixed together, Portland cement, what have you, So I've been playing around with that, and that's called a Gino special. But I'm using my imagination and being creative. Does it turn out good or not? Well, we'll see about that. Okay, so get creative, get inventing. We are now on to, let's see how much time we've got left. Oh, we have got time. But also creating and inventing, it springs to mind goals, right? What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Who do you really want to be?
Well, you have to imagine that, and then you have to create that. So that's imaginative and creative, to think about where you want to go and what you want to be. So it's good to contemplate on that, but not contemplate too much. Balance that with concentration. So do some weights and then think about what you want to do with your life in equal measure. That's a true story, really. And there was something I wanted to add to that. Oh, I think I'll find it later. I'll say it at the end, I think. Okay, now we are at Moon Musings. So looking at Moon Phase Astrology by Raven Kaldera. Well, let's talk about the moon today is the apprentice moon. Let's bring this up. It is the crescent moon in Virgo, I believe. It's a waxing crescent moon in Virgo, which, according to this book anyway, by Raven Kaldera, it's called the apprentice's moon. And on the apprentice's moon, we learn new skills, polish old ones, work in groups, especially with handcrafts, or with people who are all learning a new skill together, and in general, educate ourselves. Any class or workshop will do, so long as it teaches something that might actually be useful. Virgo has little time for abstract theorizing. Show me the work, she says. This is also a time for developing discipline and good habits. It's not really a good time to plan a big party, though. Save that for warmer moons. So yeah, I know barely anything about astrology, right? So I'm just scratching the surface, and what I just do is keep a little eye on the moon and see what's going on, and I use that book because it's the best one I've found, just with some simple advice on what's going on with the moon at the time and seeing how the moon affects us. Okay, and I just want to tie that up with what the She have to say about that, because they're the ones that keep going on about the moon. They're the ones that encourage me to keep an eye on what the moon's doing and to work with the moon a little bit, or go about my days in consideration of the effects of the moon on myself and others. Tarot of the She reading. Learn to work with nature for strength, wisdom, comfort in your own skin, improved mental health, thought control, rapid progress in your initiation, out of familiar sorrow and into success and healing. See, the She are really big on, because it's true, on us working with nature, full stop, because they see the power of it. And that's where our power lies. So what can you do? Okay, strength is the key word coming up there again. Getting out of nature again, that's another tough one. I'm pretty close to nature, and even I don't do that enough. I'm stuck sitting in front of the computer a lot of the time. So yeah, getting out of nature, important to improve mental health, thought control. So yeah, okay, so nature is a key thing, and that's part of the solution for building up your strength. So possibly exercise in nature. Is that possible for you? Is there a way to do that? But here are some ideas from them that point to what they kind of really mean or would like. Gifting orgonite. Okay, so on an apprentice's moon, on a waxing moon in Virgo, that's a good time to make orgonite and to gift it into nature. So today's a great day to do that. So just quit your job, go and learn how to make orgonite, and make it, and go and gift it into nature. Do that all today. Hey, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. And there's never a bad time to do that. You know what? Gifting orgonite was sort of at the beginning of my quote-unquote journey into all this stuff. Fairies love orgonite. They love that human beings have the power to make it. They love that human beings have had the power to create the idea of it and to figure that out. And they especially love the person that is willing to give up their time and resources to go and do that for the environment. And that is some super duper magic. But be careful, because people that don't know Orgonite think you're littering. Oh, the irony of that. So yeah, I do that over by the river. I plug some Orgonites into the ground for the river, and the river really likes it, that's for sure. Talking with the trees. You can talk to and with the trees, and you'll be surprised how powerful that is. And that was another thing at the beginning of my journey, which is another story. Yes, I'm crazy. I talk to trees. Cloud busting, which is something that connects up with Orgonite, but also just using your mind. So you can look into that. Psychokinesis, I believe it is. That's a fun thing you can do. And you can do that anywhere where you go outside, and that's connecting with nature. All right? And that builds up your strength too. That's building up your mental strength. And also looking at the clouds, you can get signs and symbols from looking at the clouds. Particularly animals, right? Looking at the clouds. Come on, you've seen... Well, that's what we used to do anyway. And that's what, I still do that. Look up at the clouds. Oh, that looks like a dolphin. Oh, that cloud looks like a dragon. Well, as we know, those animals, the symbols of those animals have meaning. And animals have meanings, and they have a message that they want to share with us. So that is connecting with nature too. Twofold. You're connecting with animals and and what's going on up in the sky in the clouds. On the apprentice's moon. Learn new skills, polish old ones. Yeah, be crafty and creative. Well, Orgonite is crafty. Joining classes or workshops. That's always good, especially if you do suffer from depression or over contemplation. Joining group and you're quite a solitary person. That is a good way to hold yourself accountable to getting up and taking action and working on your concentration, is by joining a class or a workshop. That's quite a safe way to bring yourself out of your comfort zone. That's a really good idea, and that actually keeps popping up in my show. Well, we've had 3 shows and that's kind of popped up twice, right? So that's 2/3 of the time. So joining a class or a workshop, good idea, everybody. Very good idea, okay? Especially if you have issues with your mind and depression and, struggling. Get out there, do something that you'd like to, choose a class or something that you'd like to do, and just give it a go and do it. And also the routine of it is really good for people too. Okay? And that's about that. Okay, so, fairy tales. We read The King and the Labourer. And so, to conclude today's show, to be as strong and independent and individualized as the wife in The King and the Labourer, we use the power of the mind to outwit the external monarchy and create harmony and develop our internal monarchy. All right. And to do that, we got to control our thoughts. That is so hard, man. Oh my gosh. I don't know about you guys. Controlling your thoughts is so hard. I'm just being honest. I'm sitting here going, just control your thoughts. Control your thoughts. Well, I'm just reading the content right, but I'm being honest too. It is really hard. And this is all for me too. I promise. So, control your thoughts. Struggling to control your thoughts? Well, you need to build strength to balance
your emotions and actions. Okay? So building strength is going to help your actions and emotions fall into a line. And then that's going to make your thoughts follow along. Because if you get 2 out of 3 correct, the other one's going to come along. So the hack that isn't, well, it is spoken about, but it's bringing in information from different areas and different sources. To do that, you build strength. Okay? So think of ways you can build strength. And there are ways you can build strength in nature that are a little bit out of left field. Okay? So even if you're not a super physical person, you can go and just look at the clouds. Okay? And even all of that not happening too much. So if you can't do something crafty, gifting orgonite, you couldn't go for a walk and talk with the trees? Come on, man. Do some cloud busting with your mind. Look into cloud busting full stop. Psychokinesis. Exercise. Is that too much? Well, you're running out of options. But you can look for external solutions because of the connection between the mind and the mental realm and the physical realm. You can look at external solutions, supplementation, and herbal medicine. Look into that. And an example here is if you are depressed and you suffer from melancholy, or you overthink things too much all the time, which is really depression. Look at ways to get the vascular system moving, get the blood flowing, get the blood going. Do you see the connection between building strength and getting the blood flowing? There we go. So build your strength, or take some supplements, get that blood flowing, get your mind out of that rut, and get active, and get on your path, and change the world. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care, everyone. Love you. Bye.